show tonight. Ideally it'll be awesome anyway. I don't know. I named it after the article that's at the very top of the list because I really want to talk about that one because I've mentioned it to a couple of people. And they have laughed their absolute ass off and gone, what? And I'm like, seriously, look it up. It's great.
The sex depressing one?
Yes. There's some depressing shit in there, here and there, but definitely a lot of reasons to laugh really hard. So I think we got stuff to offset it. But yeah, I think it'll be pretty good. I think it's gonna be a funny episode and yeah, a bit of a roller coaster, but it'll be pretty good. We had the Cars and Coffee this morning, and another one of my friends now has a new McLaren.
A new McLaren.
Yeah, another one. Yeah, he traded he had an MP412C.
Okay.
And he traded that for a 720S.
All right then.
So chances are very good. If you see a McLaren in the area, I know the guy who owns it.
Well, I figured as much. I seem to have forgotten my normal hat, so I guess tricorn it is tonight, even though it looks like shit. Otherwise, there's just too much glare.
Oh, fun.
I know right where it's at. It's out in my car, but I'm not going to jump up and go around out there and get it. Speaking of which, I told you I got a different car, didn't I?
Yeah, you said you had to replace it because the exploder exploded.
Yes. Exploder met a fitting end. I smoked a good-sized dough with it at 65 miles an hour.
Yet another one.
This is the first time I've ever totaled a vehicle, though, from a deer impact.
I need to get you one of those vinyls that they sell on like Etsy that says Deer Slayer, just so you can put it on like not on the back of the car, but like like where you would put like the number of kills, like on the fender.
Yeah,
like mount it there and then like just hash marks.
See what I've been talking about doing is my sister-in-law has a Cricut, those vinyl cutters. I've been talking about having her cut me out like 9 deer symbols to just layer across the fender like an airplane and its kill tally.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You gotta put like the Deer Slayer as your call sign, like on the driver's side door. Just
before I start tempting Murphy that way, maybe let me build up a little bit of a savings, so that way I can replace the vehicle when inevitably that Murphy decides to come calling again.
A buddy of mine built years ago. He built like just this massive like box steel front bumper on his Silverado because he'd hit like 4 deer and he's like, screw this. So he built that, and then he hit this massive like group of them that came out of nowhere around a blind corner, and because the bumper was all that box steel, it bent the frame of the truck and totaled it.
That's
and he's like, he goes, I almost stopped in time. I only hit like 3 of them, so it wouldn't have done that much damage if it weren't for the fucking bumper. Well, congratulations.
I mean, you played yourself.
Yeah. Homie, you played yourself. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of my buddy Dan that I've known him for probably 25 years or so. And one day we were just riding around in his truck. He wanted to go for a truck cruise. So, 3 guys sitting one, in a front row or one seat only truck. And the only thing he hadn't hit with that truck was a turkey.
He had a turkey?
Like, he had a logbook of all the animals he had killed with that truck.
Dear diary, today I killed another squirrel.
And he comes flying around a corner, and there's a flock of like 15 turkeys crossing the road. And, you know, most
Okay.
people would touch the brakes and slow it. No, he guns it and hits 4 turkeys.
I mean, if he was a bowler, that would be an incredible story. But as a
Well,
driver of a vehicle, perhaps
to
less so.
be right. Yeah, 4 turkeys, and he's like, he gets out and he looks underneath, and all 4 of them are laying underneath the truck, obviously just flopping around because the truck sat high enough to just clip their heads.
Oh yeah, so just broke color necks.
Yep. And they're flopping around underneath the truck, and he gets out, looks underneath, and starts dancing the jig in the middle of the highway.
Well, because he's completed his bingo card.
Yes, he has. He finally got a blackout. Yep.
That's
like, God.
That is not a game to play, children. Do not try this at home. Full disclosure, don't do that.
I mean, it was a 1974 Ford F-150.
Ooh, yeah, that thing was probably on its last legs anyway. I mean, not a lot of them aren't.
He had just put a brand new frame under it.
So let's see if we can hit anything hard enough to bend it. Woo!
Right.
Like, you know what's important is that in the 70s, as we all know, they really took safety seriously, especially in pickup trucks. So I'm sure that was an incredibly comfortable vehicle to hit things with.
Yeah, it's there was no such thing as a crumple zone in a vehicle.
That was your legs.
Right? And that was only if the seat, like the locking mechanism on the seat, didn't hold up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, and I've had so many of these like boomers, right? Especially like boomer Karens who are like, oh, well, you know, back when they built cars to last. I'm like, yeah, then the people didn't. Like that's why there was so many more fatalities on the road when you were in high school, Karen. That is why there are all those memorials in the hallway from back in the 70s and 80s that suddenly kind of stop in the 90s from kids dying in car accidents. It's because suddenly the cars took all of the impact instead of the people.
Yep. It was at that. So, it was in the 90s, the late 90s up until modern era, where the seatbelt actually made some sense.
I mean, being strapped to your seat doesn't help a lot if the solid steel unpadded dashboard comes into your chest.
Right. That's kind of what I'm getting at is when they started designing vehicles to take that impact, having the seatbelt on made more sense.
Well, I mean, having a seatbelt on always made more sense than not, because, you know, you're far more likely as the vehicle crushes around you to survive than if you sail through the windshield and have your jugular cut because you hit something at 15 miles an hour. But that whole myth of why you didn't want to wear a seatbelt started because of race car drivers in the 50s, because cars tended to catch fire, and it was misinterpreted as it's better to be thrown free and survive than sit in the car and burn. But that was not, in fact, what they said. What they said was it's better to die quickly from the impact with the track than it is slowly from the fire. They understood that you were dying either way. It was just one was much faster. And then you have all of these idiots driving around in American cars for years afterwards who are going, well, it's better to be thrown free so I don't burn. No, because that just means you die. Your car isn't going to burst into flames. There is no car built after the 1950s that is even remotely likely to actually burst into flames. And yes, that includes the Pinto. They are actually not statistically that likely to burst into flames. So if your biggest fear is burning alive in your car,
Gremlin, on the other hand,
even an AMC Gremlin, they're kind of built the same way because
they were designed to spontaneously combust.
I mean, if you had like a Fiero, that could maybe be a thing, or Corvette, actually, like vehicles that were built out of things that burn. That might have been an issue, but like generally, most car accidents under regular circumstances, cars don't suddenly self-immolate. That's not really an issue and never really has been since people started like figuring out that lead was bad for you. So, like,
well, let's be fair. People have always known lead was bad for you. It's just how fast the lead was thrown at you that made it deadly.
Well, I mean, sort of, yeah, but like, I mean, like the Romans made all of their pipes out of lead, and like pewter cups. You know, the principal metal. The reason you're not supposed to drink out of pewter cups, children, is because the principal material in that pewter is in fact lead. Don't drink out of those. That's a terrible idea.
And they still use lead for like underground piping.
Well, no, I mean not anything that's going to be potable water. They can't.
They have, or the last time they used, or what they do is like 1975 was when they stopped using it.
Yeah, I mean which is ridiculous.
So there are still actively used potable water pipes that are made out of lead.
Oh, all you have to do is drive around in traffic for 5 minutes to figure that one out. Like, yep. You
had the high fluoride water.
You drank out of some highly lead pipes, didn't you? Yeah.
Did you?
Those weren't nachos
as a kid?
Yeah, those were nachos. Those were paint chips. Lowe's does not, in fact, manufacture taco shells. So, to my knowledge,
but it was Sherwin-Williams. Damn it!
Yeah. But we should probably start the show. We're 10 minutes in. So hello, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. Before we get started, let me remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of any part or the entirety of this podcast by anyone and everyone except governments and their violent servants. So if you're a cop, leave now. We are also covered by Brandenburg v. Ohio and the other Supreme Court laws that are associated with that, which state that inflammatory speech cannot be punished unless that speech is likely to or intended to create imminent lawless action. As everything here is purely for entertainment purposes and no one would ever take us seriously, we're covered under that.
If you take us seriously, you have bigger problems.
We're not openly calling for riots, and if you decide to start a riot because of what we say, yeah, exactly. And if you decide to start a riot because of what we say, I mean, that's on you, man. That I had no reasonable expectation that anyone would even listen to me for more than 5 minutes. So, all of that being said, it is episode, I believe, 259. We have been absent for a month. Apologies. Summer, it's really hard to get everybody motivated to get everything done. A lot of stuff going on. As I said, top of the show, I did a Cars and Coffee this morning. Decent turnout, despite it being kind of cold, kind of rainy. We now have 2 720S's in my friend group, which is a little annoying because it reminds me how broke I am. And will always be in comparison to them. So, because there's like a pair of 650S's. There was the MP4 12C, but that's gone now. There's I think it's like 570 or something S, the littlest one. But you know, there's all of that. Jaguars, Maseratis, Ferraris, and them running around my little Alfa Romeo. It's not even the best of the Alfa Romeos, so I feel a little left out some days. But
well, let's be honest, you drive a much nicer car than I ever will.
I mean, it's pretty damn nice. Well, I will say it is a damn nice car.
Like right now, because of everything that all of the deer slaying, I'm driving a 2010 Ford Flex, which, don't get me wrong, they're nice cars. This one's 15 years old and shows its age.
Well, it was also a lot cheaper in my car.
I was going to say, I only paid $1,200 for it. But
that's the kind of price I've been looking at for vehicles for our 24 Hours of Lemons car.
Yeah.
because I can sell the interior, and if I can make at least $500 back on the interior, then it's at the 500, and we're good. So
True.
But
actually,
anyway,
there's a guy. Speaking of the 24 Hours of Lemons, there's a guy in Viroqua who has a 2010 Impala with running the 3500, which is a damn good motor, for $700.
See, now that we might be able to get put together. My buddy Chris, who has the Volcano Yellow McLaren, he has said that he would definitely help contribute money to it because he really wants to be part of it. So we might be able to get enough guys, and Kurt, who has the Maserati, also offered money. So we might be able to get enough guys. And I definitely have the mechanics. My boy Johnny, I mean, if his Camaro is anything to go by, he's a pretty talented mechanic. Thing puts 1,000 horsepower to the ground.
Yeah.
Flat plane crank, superchargers, whomp, 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 whomp. It's a hell of a ride. So he's offered. Yeah, he's offered. He's like, dude, I would love to be part of that. That sounds awesome. So we'll have mechanics, we'll have people, but hopefully coming soon to 24 Hours of Lemons in Wisconsin.
Anarchy Among Friends. Anarchy Among Friends sponsored car.
Yes, the Anarchy car. We will see if Anarcho race car is a thing that happens this year or next year. I've been trying for 2 years now. I really want to get it done, but we'll see. Where do you want to start on articles? We have a lot of articles because it's been so long since we did a show. Oh. And I mean, we could start at the bottom and start with the credit rating.
I mean, let's start locally. Let's talk about Arcadia.
Let's talk about Arcadia. So Arcadia is home to anyone who's not from around here and is listening. Arcadia is home to the global headquarters of Ashley Furniture.
Yes.
This is, I mentioned this
stuff. I will say that they make decent stuff.
Sure. We'll go with that. They're about to release a new line, by the way. My Ashley rep was in my store the other day, and he told me that they're about to launch a new line of stuff that's based on the mystical black or whatever material that they've been using, and it's going to be a convertible couch and love seat thing that just looks phenomenal, and I want it bad.
Yeah.
But hey. We actually got a hello. So despite us being gone for a month, people still are showing up. That's nice.
I'm impressed. I admire your dedication.
Yes, it's
clearly better than
mental instability.
Well,
but
tomato. You know, one man's mental instability is another man's autism. I mean,
yeah. Well, same diff. But so I mentioned that Ashley Furniture is headquartered there, and that's where, if you buy Ashley Furniture, doesn't matter where in the country you're buying Ashley Furniture, it's probably being manufactured in Arcadia. And the reason this is important is because Arcadia, the biggest city in Trempealeau County, boy, that says a lot about Trempealeau County, is running without its police department. In the last few months, all members of the department left their roles, and that is putting more of a strain on the sheriff's office. Law enforcement follows the motto protect and serve, but what if no one is there to protect or serve anyone? That's what it looks like in Arcadia. Quote, in recent weeks, the police officers down there have all left that agency for other opportunities they're going on, leaving them without any police officers except for an interim police chief. Trempealeau County Sheriff Brett Semingson said, the main question is we've been trying to ask is why. We haven't gotten a clear answer, but we know some of the people took new jobs in and outside of law enforcement. It's not just unique to Arcadia. A lot of smaller agencies or law enforcement in general across the board are struggling to keep their employees or find new employees, the sheriff said. Now, what is the scuttlebutt that you heard, Chris, from people who would know?
So the scuttlebutt that I had heard about this is the Trempealeau County District Attorney is not allowing local PDs that are using the county standard, which means all of their inmates are going to county lockup. They're not allowing them to enforce immigration law. And one thing that is very prevalent in Arcadia are border jumpers.
I'm not going to say that if you actually enforced immigration rules, Ashley Furniture would go out of business. But I will say that it would probably disproportionately negatively affect their workforce.
And being that they are the largest tax tax resource for the entire county, the entire Trumbull County, it would stand to reason, and the city of Arcadia for that matter, it would stand to reason that there might be an incentive,
a small one
to not allow the local Smokies to do that. Let's see.
Well, and this is a rumor that is supported by what goes on in the article. It says, what is unique to Arcadia is that so many of the officers left at similar times. Arcadia's mayor, John Kimmel, told WEAU in a statement, in part, many departments face staffing shortages or other issues. Ours just happened all at once. Our situation in Arcadia is unique in that our former officers moved on to new careers in a relatively short time frame, which has presented us with both a challenge and an opportunity to build from the ground up. However, the fact that they all left kind of says there was a reason for them all to leave simultaneously. Because cops, especially cops that get jobs in small towns, tend to hold on to those jobs.
Yes. Because it's a fairly easy ride, let's be honest. Just to give you an idea, Ashley Furniture Industries reported a revenue in 2024 of $4.2 billion. However, specific profit figures for 2024 are not provided with that information.
So, also, it bears pointing out that the sheriff's office right now is in Whitehall.
Yes.
Which is not immediately next door to Arcadia.
No. It's
like a half-hour drive?
Nah, it's not that much. It's like 10 minutes up the road.
But still, like it adds a little bit of response time if anybody does actually have any emergencies. But what's important, and the reason I wanted to bring this article up very specifically, is because
I take it back. It's 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes.
At the speed limit, it's 20 minutes.
Yeah. And who does that? But there's no reason to do that because there's no cops to pull you over. However, I do want to point out that the reason I bring this up is because Arcadia now has no police department and yet has yet to burn to the ground. In fact, if you were to go to Arcadia right now, you would have no idea that there is, in fact, no police department unless somebody told you. Probably in Spanish. But anyway.
I mean, the last time I was in Arcadia, well, aside from for show choir for Emily a couple of years back, was when I used to run the tire truck. And I was in Arcadia like 3 times a week. And if you were driving down the road, there was a 99% chance that you just about ran over a Mexican kid.
Dude, I will say, I almost bought a car a little while ago. Actually, a really nice tuned VW Golf GTI from a guy in one of the trailer parks there. And there was not a single person speaking English, including him, in the area.
Yeah.
So, like, I wanted to buy the car, but I could not effectively communicate because my Spanish has gotten so bad over the years to be able to buy the car. So I'm like, I mean, there are businesses that have all of their signage in both English and Spanish in Arcadia, just to put that in perspective.
That's every business, with the exception of the tractor dealerships.
Well, I think we can guess why that is.
I'm just saying, because there are 2 dealerships up there. One is a Case New Holland, and the other one is a John Deere. And they're like right across the street from each other.
Isn't somebody doing like Kubota days up there? I could swear I just heard that. They're doing
like
Kubota Orange Days or something. It's all over.
But I think the the company or the Tractor Central up there is also does Kubota.
That might be.
They're also
I
the
don't know.
John Deere. They're also the John Deere dealer. So,
Yeah.
but I want to point out, like what Andrew said, the city has not burned to the ground. Things have not gone completely crazy.
It's fine.
It's a city of 3,700 people,
According to the census.
according to the census. Yes.
I'm just
You're not
gonna
wrong.
remind you.
You're
It's
not
actually
wrong.
probably about 10,000 people.
Yes. I happen to know that back when I was running through there was an upstairs apartment over the diner that was up there. At any given time, if you went into that diner, it sounded like there was a stampede of elephants upstairs because there were probably 7 or 8 Hispanic families living up there.
Yeah.
And there was
it's
3 2-bedroom apartments.
they and there's a lot to be said about like the Mexican culture and the Hispanic culture still maintaining that connection to like in-laws and extended family and the way that helps them cope economically and everything else. And that's a stronger and better way to do it by having a larger nuclear family, blah, blah, blah. But it's still like it's hilarious and it's a joke for us because like when you go to Arcadia, you are faced with the reality that like you are not in Kansas anymore. Like you are in Little Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the bluffs and hills of the driftless area of Wisconsin.
If you roll your windows down on a warm summer night and drive through the main street in Arcadia, you will hear mariachi music all the way through town.
Everywhere. It's my least favorite part about Hispanic culture. Least favorite part. But just don't stop at Abuela's house when she's playing what's her face? Selena. Because you will be forced to help clean.
Yes.
Just saying. Yeah, but it hasn't burned to the ground. Everything's fine. Everything's operating just fine. Everybody's good.
Everyone's probably happier.
Yeah,
everyone's probably happier.
Nothing has changed in any appreciable way for the worse, despite the fact that there is no police department at all. Like it's fine. No one cares. So, just want to point that one out. Let's see. Speaking of things being just fine, don't worry about it. Don't question it. It's totally fine. It definitely isn't a big deal, and you probably shouldn't question it. The government argues it's too much to ask the FBI to check the address before blowing up a home.
Yeah. So this stems from a story. What was it? What year was that from? Shit, I forgot. We covered the story. This is actually an update.
Yes, this is an update. So when this story happened, right?
It was a family. I think it was a family of 3. And the FBI kicked in their door, flashbanged the house, pointed fully automatic rifles at a peaceful family that was trying to sleep and their kid.
Yep.
And
7-year-old son who they kept separated from the parents at gunpoint.
Yes. And they took the father said, "Dude, did you check the address?" Because he asked for the warrant. They showed him the warrant. He said, "This is the wrong address." So they rechecked the address and went, "Sorry," and then just left.
Yep, after having destroyed the house. So,
yes,
the Supreme Court last week heard a case from that family. Was wrongly raided by the FBI, after which they were barred from bringing their civil suit to trial. Before the court, should the plaintiffs have been able to sue the government under the Federal Tort Claims Act?
Oral arguments. Yes.
Yeah, they should. But oral arguments got into the weeds of the FTCA, under which plaintiffs Katrina Martin and Toy Cleat were prohibited from suing, even though Congress revised that law in the 1970s to give recourse to victims of federal law enforcement misconduct. But there's one particularly instructive exchange between the court and Frederick Liu, assistant to the Solicitor General at the Justice Department. A back and forth that is decidedly less in the weeds. Liu, the officers were weighing public safety considerations, efficiency considerations, operational security, the idea that they didn't want to delay the start of the execution of the warrants because they wanted to execute all the warrants simultaneously. Those are precisely the sorts of policy trade-offs that an officer makes in determining, well, should I take one more extra precaution to make sure I'm at the right house? Here, petitioner suggests, for example, that the officer should have checked the house number on the mailbox. Justice Neil Gorsuch.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you might look at the address of the house before you knock down the door.
Yeah. Might not be a bad fucking idea, you assholes.
You think? You think maybe that's a reasonable request?
You know, I think that goes beyond being reasonable.
Yeah, Lou goes, yes, and as the district court found at 52A, that sort of decision is filled with policy trade-offs because the checking the house. Gorsuch, really? Lou, number at the end of the driveway means exposing the agents to potential lines of fire from the windows. Gorsuch, how about making sure you're on the right street? Is that, asking too much?
Yes, because the house that they went to wasn't even on the right street, if I remember this case correctly. It was like 2 blocks over.
Yeah, they were in completely the wrong place. But apparently, according to the federal government, asking them to verify that they're in the correct city as they make the raid is just too much risk. Just too much. That the government indeed thinks it's asking too much to do basic due diligence here, meaning requiring agents to ensure that they are, in fact, in the right place before detonating an explosive device inside a home and ripping the door from its fucking hinges, epitomizes the state's general allergy to accountability. More dire is that the argument fucking worked. Process.
The FBI SWAT team, quote, executed the warrant while it was still dark outside, end quote, wrote the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in ruling against Martin and Cleat last year, and, quote, difficult to ascertain the house numbers on the mailboxes. The leader of the raid, Lawrence Guerrera, thus acted reasonably, the court said, when he led officers to the wrong house. There, agents set off a flash grenade, took the front door off, stormed into the couple's bedroom, handcuffed Cleat, and held the couple at gunpoint, rendering Martin unable to get to her 7-year-old son in a different room.
Here's the part where we remind you that under American federal law, it is legal to resist unlawful arrest by any means necessary up to and including fatal ones.
Bad acts. Look it up. I don't know if there is a proper word that I can use to describe the fear she felt that night. Martin told Reason last year, prior to the court taking up the case. There's been a lot of incidents of negligence, and it's like no one takes accountability. And there needs to be awareness. It's really sad that the people that you look up to for protection are the ones that seem to harm you the most. Where have we heard that sentiment before?
It's also distressing that the government believes that it should be able to pair stratospheric levels of power at disproportionately low standards, but
let's be fair.
Supreme Court agrees.
Well, let's be fair. We are talking about law enforcement agencies who sued for the right to hire idiots.
If you take this in, right, and you objectively, like, you step back and you objectively process this, what the government is arguing, legitimately arguing, and has successfully argued in lower courts, is that the officer's safety takes precedent over the Fourth Amendment.
Yes.
That is their argument.
It is more important that their jackboots be protected under the law than the fucking Constitution, that paper shield that everyone likes to hide behind, that they're supposed to uphold.
They're saying what they're arguing for is absolute police state powers.
Yes.
There is there's no outside thing to this. That is what they're arguing for, is absolute police state powers. If they can kick in anyone's door anytime they want, hold anyone they want at gunpoint anytime they want, and they're not obligated to actually verify that it is somebody that they have proven to a court they have a reasonable suspicion are in fact committing crimes and they need to do this. If they can do that to you, you are not securing your homes, persons, or property.
Nope.
You are not free of the quartering of soldiers. You are, in fact, blatantly in a police state, and you cannot argue otherwise. That is a police state. That is not the kind of thing that the founding fathers of the United States certainly would have tolerated, considering that that's exactly the kind of thing that was fucking happening, and their response was to shoot them in the face with cannons.
Which, by the way, contrary to what the left would have you believe, you can own, and they're completely unregulated.
Oh, I love that when Biden was like, you can't own a cannon, and I'm like, oh, sir, I assure you can.
In fact, it was encouraged when cannons were the main heavy battlement.
Remember that although the Marine Corps loves to go to the shores of Tripoli, the shores of Tripoli were actually cleared of pirates by privateers, not by an official military, that were fighting on ships, warships, heavily armed warships that were entirely privately owned.
So what you're saying is there's a chance that I might be able to get my hands on the USS Wisconsin?
I mean, personally, I think we should homestead that, but
you know what? I absolutely agree with you.
Considering its history, if that mountain offends me, remove it. Make that not there. And then it just did.
Not only did they die on that hill, the hills died with them.
Yes, the hill died with them. If you don't know, look up USS Wisconsin Temper, and you will find out exactly what we're talking about. And it is a I am the righteous hand of God moment.
You know, I love the Fat Electrician's video, his little short that he did on that one.
I did one on that too, but you know what? And everyone tags that motherfucker on all my videos, and he said more than once, like, yeah, I've seen his videos, like, they're not bad, like, whatever. But it's like, why do I provide you a bunch of in-depth information and your response is, but I want to hear this man make it also funnier? I'm sorry, you lame monkeys, that I am not funnier, all right? I'm providing too much factual information for you.
And you know, if I was on TikTok, guys, I probably would watch your stuff, but I'm not.
What irritates me, just to vent real quick, what irritates me the most about this shit is the fact that I provide you all of the information. It's all entirely factual, right? All they do is say the exact same information that I've already said. That's all they're going to do with their video, and yet you tag them on my video so that they'll redo all of the information that's in my video. Like, you can't learn from mine,
right?
Like, what I include sound effects and clips where I talk old-timey and wear old-timey military uniforms because I have a whole shit ton of them. It's ridiculous.
It can
World
get
War
from
World War
Berlin.
Korea.
It can get from Berlin to Moscow in a single tank.
In a single tank. Then no one said it didn't fuck. But speaking of, though, yeah, okay, so admittedly, but relive the good old days. Yay, Fanta. But
Fanta 2. I don't know if you know that one or not.
Yeah, no. But
Gabriel Iglesias goes to India to do some shows, and there were two Germans in the front row, and the most popular soda in India is Fanta. And so he's like, "Oh, we've got some German. What do you?" And he talks about what's their favorite drinks and all that stuff, and he's trying to get regain control of the show. And the Indians are trying to help the Germans. Like, they like Fanta too. And the German guy turns around and goes, no, we do not like Fanta. And he goes, what do we drink, fat man? And Gabriel just gets pissed off. He looks the German guy in the face and goes, blood of Jews.
Oh boy.
Uh-huh.
Ouch. But as we were talking about the founding fathers of America, and we were talking about what they would have done in this situation, being faced with an FBI, a federal government that argues that they're allowed to kick in your door whenever they want because they want to, and you're not allowed to even sue them and redress your grievances with the federal government over it. I think it's important that we bring up that the feds insist the Second Amendment does not protect machine guns, specifically because they would not be used by a militia.
Fun fact. Yes, they would.
So, just to recap, if you're not up to speed, the federal government has recently made a bunch of moves against paramilitary organizations, aka militias, and their use of machine guns and explosives in their training, as well as shoot houses, things like that. And they've just argued that machine guns would not be used by militias. Militias, the citizen army that fights off an invading army, things like that. That's called up
domestic enemies.
Yeah, that's totally not a thing that they'd use. So machine guns are atypical weapons not protected by the Second Amendment because a reasonable person would not expect them to be used in malicious service, the federal government argued last Wednesday.
So this article is from May 7th. So
yeah, it's been a minute. The government decided federal statute 18 USC 992 sub O, which criminalizes possession of a machine gun, as it sought to uphold a conviction against Wakan Bridges, who pleaded guilty to the offense after a 2023 shootout with police on a Tennessee interstate highway. Bridges was arrested with a Glock 40 caliber pistol with an attachment that converted the handgun into a machine gun. That is not what it did. It converted the handgun to be capable of full auto fire. It is called an auto sear.
I was going to say, it made the handgun select fire.
Yes. But fought to dismiss the charge on constitutional grounds. He claimed the 2022 U.S. Supreme Court ruling in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin required dismissal of the charge because machine guns fall under the definition of arms used in the Second Amendment, which they absolutely fucking do.
Yes.
U.S. District Judge John Folks Jr. disagreed and cited the 2008 Supreme Court decision of Heller, District of Columbia v. Heller, in his decision to deny the dismissal motion. Quote,
I want to read this. I want to read this.
Okay. You read this as I get my FPC sticker more into the screen here.
Heller explained that this is a quote from the judge. Heller explained that the type of weapons protected by the Second Amendment were, subquote, those in common use at the time, and we think that limitation is fairly supported by the historical tradition of prohibiting the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons. Okay, I'm going to
stop. In fact, there is no historical prohibition of carrying dangerous and unusual weapons.
No, in fact, carrying dangerous weapons was highly encouraged in the time in which the Second Amendment came to be.
I have bad news for these people. If your weapon isn't dangerous, it is not, in fact, a weapon.
That's exactly it. But I also want to reiterate that the judge is saying those in common use at the time. What he's referencing there is common use at the time in which the Second Amendment was written and ratified. He's trying to use the Second Amendment only covers muskets argument that the anti-gunners constantly rely on.
Can I have a set of cannons mounted on like my RV then? Because they were in common use at the time of the American Revolution, so I feel like I should have.
I mean, personally, I think everybody should have cannons with cannon doors all the way around the interior of their house.
It's in my emotional support paragon.
Yeah. Like I firmly believe everybody should have at least 2 long 9s on every wall of their house, every exterior wall of their house.
If I could build, right, if I could build like an 86 Cadillac Brougham with a flying bridge and like 3 cannons off each side and a swivel gun on the deck, I guarantee you traffic would become far less of a concern for me.
Mm-hmm. And because I have small children, you know what that makes me think of?
The fact that machine guns are crew served weapons?
No.
No.
The movie Cars, when Lightning McQueen is helping out everybody in town, and he's going through Sarge's surplus, and Sarge comes around the corner with an artillery piece, and it says guaranteed to end tailgaters.
It will. I have, in fact, once I was at a World War II like reenactment thing in France, and we were driving down the road to get there with a couple of my buddies, and he's a heavy World War II collector, whatever, and we're driving in a Jeep, dressed full 101st Airborne outfits,
Yep.
and we're driving in the Jeep, and there is an anti-tank gun being towed behind us, and weirdly, all of the traffic, even though we could only do 20 miles an hour under the speed limit, never tailgated us.
I can't imagine why.
Not one of them started to crawl up on that gun barrel. Which I mentioned to him, and he's like, yeah, we generally don't get too many people trying to like race around us or anything. They tend to just hang back. It was the same thing. They do a huge, because they do like it's actually really cool because they do like a reenactment of the March Across Normandy. So it's like just a whole bunch of vehicles, and so like because I was dressed as you know, like a light infantry from World War II, I was able to hop up and catch a ride on one of the tanks. So I got to sit on an M4 Sherman as it cruised through the bocage. And nice. It was a fun experience. That's a hell. If you ever get the chance to go do that, absolutely 100% go do that. It's amazing, and it's really cheap to actually do if you already have like the uniform to wear to be part of it and everything. It's actually really, really cheap. It's so much fun, and everybody there is super passionate about what they do. And it's, I mean, just a super international crew. It's great. It is a massive amount of fun. They do it on the anniversary of D-Day every year.
Yeah, if I remember right, Brandon Herrera was supposed to do one of the parachutes, be on one of the parachute teams for that a few years back or a couple of years
There
back.
is a 0% chance you could convince me to ever parachute out of one of those aircraft. I've parachuted out of other aircraft. And the last thing I want to do is parachute out of a World War II era aircraft, because I just have this feeling that at that point I have tempted the Lord thy God a bit too much. And no, absolutely not. I hate heights at the best of times. I'm just warning you now. I'm really not a big fan of them as it is. So. But
well, you know, they don't want us to have our the feds don't want us to have our machine guns, but then again, Congress is back at it trying to reintroduce assault weapons bans.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's you guys can read again. All the articles are linked in the description. You can read that one, but basically their argument is machine guns are dangerous and unusual. And I'm like, what's an unusual weapon? You know what's an unusual weapon? The heat-seeking briefcase in Hitman. That's an unusual weapon. The explosive ducky, which is one of my favorite weapons to use in Hitman, and if you've never used it, you are missing out. The explosive ducky is an amazing thing. That is also an unusual weapon. The fish, unusual weapon. Killing someone with a halibut is not expected. Okay, that would be unusual, and I could see saying, no, you can't carry 100-pound halibut through the streets. I guess I could see that.
Can I carry around a baby swordfish and use that to impale my enemies.
I mean, that would also be an unusual weapon. But again, there's no actual historic, like the laws, the historical laws do not in fact make a distinction between weapons in common use and unusual novel weaponry. Like they really don't. There's no historical precedent for that until you get to the NFA and GCA. Which is more than 150 years after the founding of the United States. A country that is, what,
So
240 years old?
So what you're saying is there was no historical analog at the time of the country's founding that would necessitate or that would validate the existence of the NFA.
None whatsoever.
I'm glad we got that figured out. Now let's see if the retards in black robes can figure it out.
We'll see. They probably won't. But which one were you moving to? You're moving to the...
I just kind of glossed over the House Democrats reintroduced an assault weapons ban.
Oh, yeah. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Right. We don't need to read that one. You can read it for yourself if you want to. Long story short,
but
the Democrats are doing Democrat things and trying to ban guns again.
Are you old enough to remember the Clinton-era assault weapons ban? Are you old enough to remember that it did absolutely nothing to curb gun violence in the United States? Well, if so, guess what? The Democrats have reintroduced AWB Part 2.
They want to go for 2. Yep.
Yeah, they're going for 2. This summer, the Democrats will do the same thing that didn't work the first time.
Unfortunately, Andrew, you saying it like that makes me hurt right here. You know why? Because I have 2 adult children who are too young to remember when a time when the AR pattern rifle was not legal.
You know, I remember pre-94. So I remember when you could get a fucking Daewoo K100, right?
Yeah. I remember.
You could buy one. You could buy a DS.
I can remember as in that era, the town I grew up in, they had a division, what was called a Division 1 store for Walmart. So all they had was general merchandise and like 2 aisles with grab and go groceries, canned goods, that kind of stuff. But they also had a gun counter in the back that still sold handguns. And then right up the street, you had, and anybody who's old enough to remember this retailer, I'm sorry, you probably need to go get your arthritis checked like I do. Pomida.
Oh, God.
There was a Pomida. Yeah, exactly. Makes your joints hurt just thinking about it. There was a Pomida right up the street. And whatever you could, they always had a flyer, price match anything. So if you went to Walmart and you were offered a say, go cheap, Remington 870 for this much, and you went to Pomida and they were $100 more, guess what? They'd give you Walmart's price if you bought it from them. And they'd undercut it by like $10.
See, we used to be a proper fucking country.
Pretty much.
Where I could get a price match on an AR, motherfuckers. All right, we used to be a proper fucking country.
Right? Of course, back in those days, Wisconsin still had a 3-day waiting period for handgun purchases too. So.
Dude, my first handgun I ever purchased, I had to go through the 3-day waiting period. It's the dumbest fucking thing ever. I'm like, I have literally no criminal record. I have no reason for you to suspect that I'm imminently going to commit a crime. This is the dumbest thing ever. And the guy at the gun counter at Webkey was like, yeah, I'm really sorry that that's pretty dumb, but I got to do it.
Well, I mean, the first handgun I ever bought, I bought from a place in Sparta called Guns for You. and he sold everything at 10% over cost.
I always wanted to do one that was like a take on Toys R Us. It was Guns Be Wee. And
But I remember going there and I bought 2 handguns, and it was like the months before they repealed the 3-day wait.
yeah, all you do is wait a little bit. A
Yeah.
little bit.
Well, I didn't even know it was on the table at that point in time.
It's funny how many people like I talk to who are very much in the gun community who do not pay attention to gun laws and things. And like I'll talk to them and be like, well, you can't legally do that. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, the law says you can't do. What do you mean I can't do? Like there are so and I thoroughly believe I thoroughly believe that a lot of the reason why a lot of the gun community is not more mobilized to like, oh, I don't know.
It's because they just don't. They honestly don't
FBC.
know. They don't know. They don't know that certain things are actually illegal.
And that's what I'm saying is I think that the reason that a lot of people in the gun community are not more aggressively mobilized in favor of firearms rights and things is because they have no idea how much they can't do. It's the thing about like you don't know how long your chain is until you get to the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of FUDs in the world, right? And there are a lot of like 3rd, 4th generation FUDs. Like we've all encountered those like 20-year-olds who've only ever shot like pump action shotguns and bolt action rifles. And you're like, oh yeah, I got ARs, I got AKs, I got, yeah, you want to see a full auto? Like, let me show you a full auto. Here's my suppressor, right? We've all encountered those guys, and they're like, what? You can have that? And they have no idea that that's even a thing that you can buy. And then once they start to figure some stuff out, all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes off. And I think that if you are in the firearms community and you are not evangelizing the firearms rights and how arbitrary firearms laws are and how much they need to change and all of these things, you're not doing that. You are doing yourself and those of your friends who are in the community a dramatic disservice. And FPC regrettably doesn't sponsor it. Well, not regrettably. I understand why FPC doesn't sponsor us. Let's be honest. We all understand why they don't.
Yeah,
why that's not a thing. But I will promote them endlessly anyway. I am a happy member of the Firearms Policy Coalition, and I will reinforce to you, join the FPC. If you are pro-gun, you are somebody who wants to, promote firearms law, that wants to expand your rights, and you care about rights. I mean, their motto is all of the rights, all of the time. Okay. I don't care what rights you're fighting for. If you care about rights, you should care about firearms rights. And if you do, FPC is the organization to back. They are amazing. They are constantly lawsuit printer go burr. They are and constantly fighting for your rights, whether not only you support FPC, them or not.
If you have the ability to do so, don't just sign up for FPC. Do GOA and SAF too.
Every organization, right? I highly support. Yeah, like just stay away from the NRA. They're a bunch of FUDs, and they weren't even founded as a gun rights organization. They've never been a gun rights organization. Anyone who tells you different is a lying sack shit, or possibly an idiot.
Or both.
They were founded to promote civilian marksmanship, to keep a well-trained civilian population available for the event that we need to mobilize the populace for a war again after the Spanish-American War. And what's funny about that is that I think it's important to note that they then kind of became irrelevant after Woodrow Wilson decided to create a federal standing military. So that's fun. But yes, the Firearms Policy Coalition, FPC, it's fpc.org. Check them out. They don't sponsor us. They don't pay us. We literally pay them. We give them money. Okay. We contribute to them, but I am that passionate about what they do. I am that passionate about who they are I want them to grow and grow and grow and grow and become a buzzword like the NRA. I want them to supersede the NRA as the buzzword that all of the lefties are constantly whining about, constantly complaining about. That's what I want to hear. Is I want to hear them go, "Oh, you're part of the FPC." Like, that's what I want, because right now everyone still talks about the NRA, and the FPC is doing 100,000 times more than the NRA could ever hope to do. And because the NRA will never do anything. And I want to see it get to the point that the lefties actively speak out against the FPC. I mean, it's happened a few times because of the shit they've done on Twitter, which is just based as hell. They are based on Twitter, man. Or I guess the platform formerly known as Twitter.
They're so much fun to watch their threads and everything.
The way lefties melt down and they just go, "Fuck you," and they're like, "Oh, that's mature," and they're like, "Well, so is making the same argument that's been made for the past 100 years and shot down like you're fucking 4," and just absolutely destroy people. It's
It's
so
glorious.
good. I cannot tell you enough how much I love the Firearms Policy Coalition. I would love to work for them. I don't know what I do other than marketing or like social media stuff for them. I honestly don't. I could make videos for them, but I would love to work for. I would absolutely love to work for them, and I'm come fairly cheap. So if you work for the FPC and you see this or hear this and would like to hire me, please reach out to our Facebook page, and we'll be in touch for me to come work for you. Because oh my God, would I love that. Dream come true. That being said, should we talk about the reason we're all here? I think it's time.
That's what we're here for, isn't it?
I think it's time. I think it's time that we talked about the name of the episode. Sex workers have been saying a recession is coming, and their financial indicators are consistently eerily spot on. It's the stripper index, folks. It's the stripper index. While some people anxiously watch the stock market for signs of a recession, others look for more subtle cues that the economy is in trouble. One of them is Catherine Denoir, a manager of a legal brothel, a PhD candidate in organizational psychology, and an influencer. When business at her brothel unexpectedly dips, Denoir takes it as a sign that the economy is in trouble. Although Denoir is based in Europe, she believes that economic upheaval in the United States, quote, triggers huge uncertainty, end quote, across the pond because of America's global influence. Denoir first noticed a decline in business right after Donald Trump was elected in November 2024, as Americans and the rest of the world anticipated upheaval. Strippers in the U.S., our favorite subject on this show, are also feeling the pinch. Dancer and influencer Vulgar Vanity, she sounds nice, said that when she first danced in 2022, she could earn 6 figures just by dancing during a handful of big events in Austin, such as the Formula One Grand Prix and South by Southwest Music Festival. This year is different. Can I just say that Grand Prix and a trip to the strip club sounds like the greatest fucking weekend I have ever heard of? You throw in a trip to the range with machine guns, right? Trip to the range with machine guns, F1 Grand Prix, strippers. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean that is the quintessential in my mind. That's the quintessential weekend. That sounds like a hell of a bachelor party weekend.
Oh, that's a fucking just. It's June. Celebrate. Like, this is. Quote, I didn't even bother working South by Southwest because the first Friday night I attempted to work, I walked into a completely empty club and didn't make any money at all, she said. Vanity also says that many of her regular customers aren't tipping at all or are tipping less than half of what they used to. If you don't tip your strippers, you're a jerk.
Support your local single moms, folks.
Tip your strippers, for the love of God, you heathens.
Well, that's part of the reason, or that's what they really want to do, is literally tip their strippers. But
from experience, don't do that.
no, absolutely agreed. Don't do that. But we all know that that's what's really on the mind.
It's first of all, the stripper's not actually into you. She's into me. Second of all, what's important
Right.
is
That's what got you in trouble the first time.
do you know how many strippers I've dated? We're not going to go into how many strippers I've dated.
We're not going to go there.
The point is, the strippers aren't into you. They're into guys like me. Okay. First of all. Second of all, if you don't tip your strippers, you're an absolute jackass. You should not be at that club. Somebody should hurt you. Some sort of deep emotional way forever. But she is quick to point out that she is just one dancer, end quote, obviously not an economist, end quote, but she notes that other dancers and tipped workers are also hurting. Her theory is that her customers are no longer tipping as generously because of rising costs and economic uncertainty. Vanity is worried that this means that we are on the verge of a recession or full-blown depression. Seriously, stripper index, mans. It's Superfreak enomics. Okay. Are these astute women onto something? Indicators like a decline in business at brothels, lower tips for strippers, and other non-traditional measures of economic health, quote, have a measure of validity, but may be more coincidence indicators than leading ones, end quote, said Martin Norton, a chief investment strategist of Empower and probably a lesbian. While Norton finds this type of anecdotal evidence interesting, she says she looks at more traditional sources of data, especially corporate earnings in the stock market, to predict if a recession is in our future. By those traditional measures, quote, we may be slowing, but we aren't facing a looming recession yet, she said. Denoir believes that the tariffs Trump announced on what he called Liberation Day will, end quote, or will, starting quote, definitely contribute to a further decline and recession, end quote. Okay. I want to point out here, nevertheless, the past has shown that non-traditional measures can tell us a lot about the economy's health. There are other anecdotal indicators of the economy, including brothels and other things. If you wish to learn more about those, again, check out that article. But I do want to point out very quickly that, first of all, strippers and hookers and brothel owners are generally far more intelligent than most people will give them credit for.
Yep.
Second of all, they are a solid indicator because they are a luxury service. And when luxury services start suffering, they will do that before the traditional indicators start suffering.
Yes.
Because what they indicate is the opinion of the men who drive the economy, not what the men who drive the economy are actively doing at this moment. They are reflecting the future opinion of those men, because those men are the men who invest in Wall Street. If they aren't willing to invest in luxury services and luxury goods, that is because they are buckling down because they see something coming. They haven't reacted to it yet because it hasn't happened yet, but they anticipate that that is the case, whether they are doing that consciously or subconsciously. And this is why the stripper index matters.
And the brothel index, for that matter.
And the brothel index, according to Denoir, the business at her brothel usually picks up in the spring once people give up on their New Year's resolutions. Oh, I love the adult industry so much. Just everything about it is hilarious and just shameless, and it's wonderful. And recover from holiday spending. But this year, business is down. She attributes the, quote, huge dip, end quote, in earnings to her brothel to customers feeling insecure about the economy. Quote, there are significantly fewer clients coming in, and the sex workers are reportedly noticing lower earnings. She said, although Denoir emphasizes that the top sex workers at her brothel are still earning more compared to the general population, she said some of the highest earners at her brothel are earning about half of what they did during the same time last year. That is a massive drop, YOY.
Oh, yeah, especially some of those gals that, I know a couple of them that made before COVID, they were making 6 figures easy. And now most of them have gone back to regular 9 to 5s to get out of it, because there's just, ever since COVID's, that just the clientele has not returned.
Dude, 50% YOY though, drop in earnings. That's
Insane.
enormous. That's enormous. She said, we're seeing clients come in less often, try to negotiate lower prices, or stop visiting altogether. We're also hearing from our workers that more clients are going for the cheapest possible service, she said. I can probably make some guesses on what that is.
I would recommend never going for the cheapest possible service in that case.
Look, if you're going to a brothel and you're like, what's the cheapest thing? You know what the cheapest thing is, okay? And you can do that yourself. You don't need to pay someone else to do it. Save your money. Use it for a subscription to your favorite content creator. I'm just saying. Support local businesses. Support single moms. According to De Noir, this suggests that people are saving money or reallocating their spending towards things they see as more essential, likely because they're preparing for challenging times ahead, like I just said. Legal brothels in the U.S. are seeing a similar trend, according to Andrew Loganoff, a data analyst and founder of BeFluentInFinance.com. He explains that revenue at legal brothels in Nevada is down roughly 20% since last quarter. Quote, my research shows this correlates strongly with discretionary spending trends, indicating a recession is likely.
Well, I've heard anecdotally, of course, from other businesses in Nevada, like, say casinos in Vegas. Their revenues are down right now too, because people are just not gambling with their limited resources. They might go to Vegas, they'll go to stay at the hotels and they'll go visit the restaurants and stuff like that, but they're not gambling anymore. They're going for the actual entertainment experience instead of dumping their money down the hole of a slot machine or something like that.
Yeah. And this is where I talk about, like, this is that cutback is like, you have these economists who are probably these hyper leftist, likely Keynesian, very like anti-sex worker, prudy, horrible, ugly woman. Economists who are going, no, I don't think that's true. I don't think that it really, but I'm telling you, man, the luxury services matter when it comes to predicting this shit. It does. For instance, the stripper index. Chris, if you want to read the stripper index one.
Strippers are often the first ones to notice a downturn in the economy. Dancers are obviously not a priority or household necessity and are, quote, the first to feel it because we're the first ones tossed aside, Vanity said. The stripper index is one of those odd but oddly effective indicators of economic health, said David Kindness, a certified public accountant and finance expert. It tracks how much strippers are earning and how often customers are going to strip clubs, he explained. So like Andrew said, the going and sitting at the bar and watching the titties on the pole, it's not really a priority when you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you're seeing your energy bills go up fucking constantly, or you're constantly hitting deer and having to replace cars. You're experiencing financial uncertainty. So if you're experiencing financial uncertainty, is the first thing you're going to do on a Friday night with your buddies, go to the local titty bar and watch all the C-sections dance around? No, you're not going to piss your money away that way. When tips slow down and foot traffic thins out, it often means people are holding on to their extra cash, Kindness explained. According to Lokanoth, Vanity isn't the only dancer feeling the squeeze, and that's not a good sign. Strip club revenue in Vegas is down about 12%, which could indicate we're headed for a recession. Like I said, People aren't going down to Vegas and spending their money on things where they are not seeing some sort of long-term return. Long-term returns could be some sort of an investment or just an experience, something you're going to remember long-term. Like, for example, when my wife and I went to Vegas.
I remember some of my stripper encounters long-term.
You have a different lifestyle, Andrew. Nobody judges you for it, but no one cares either.
Motherfucker, everyone judges me for it. Don't you lie to me.
I don't give a shit. Nobody in our crowd is going to judge you for it. Shit. The only thing we judge you for is the fact that you used to work for the man.
I mean, that's fair.
But I mean, realistically, when you look at the stripper index, when strip club revenue in Vegas is down by 12%, like I was saying about going to these vacation destinations, you're not spending your money on things where you have a remote chance of a return, like at a casino and the slot machines or the blackjack tables or the roulette wheels or anything like that. And you're not primarily going to the strip clubs. You're spending your money on show tickets and anything like that where you're actually getting an experience that you're sharing with your friends, and you're going to talk about it sitting around the campfire for the next 10 years. Oh, do you remember when that? Oh yeah, I remember that. That's what you're spending your money on. You're not pissing your money away down the ass crack of a stripper.
Remember when I took that midget stripper home? Okay, maybe that's just me.
You were just going for a little fuck, right?
The sigh is what did it, man. That made that fucking just thing like, yeah, like a time around midget stripper home. I haven't actually done that, in case anyone's wondering, but if you are a midget stripper and you would perhaps be interested. So, but, hey man, we all got our bucket list. All right. We all got our bucket list.
Just go to Hollywood, find Bridget the midget, and shoot your shot, man.
Nah, Tiny Texie, bro. Tiny Texie.
There you go. That works.
She's the one on the list, you know. It's just saying. It's a little, you know.
And one thing, I will agree with Tinkerer there in the comments. When the revenue goes down, the quality of the strippers tends to go down with it.
Initially, but then it actually goes up. Because then people who were not otherwise stripping begin to. However, I will say that actually the biggest detriment to the quality of our strip clubs is, in fact, OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So, yes, the midget stripper tour did come through Winona a few weeks ago. I unfortunately was unable to make that, and it is one of my greatest regrets. So I hope that they come back through again.
Yes, I was going to say, Andrew and I had made plans in our channel chat to try to attend that, it wasn't happening.
My favorite thing about that was that there was the one chick they advertised as 4'12" for her height. I'm like, you mean 5 foot? But yeah, that was great. Anyway, there's another one. There's the beer index. The type of beer people drink is a, quote, pretty good indicator, end quote, of whether a recession is on the horizon, said Jack Buffington, also a fantastic name. I am Jack Buffington.
Dude's probably 350 pounds and drives a desk for a living.
I know, but I feel like if you're a beer enthusiast and an economist and your name is Jack Buffington, if you do not, in fact, bench like 340 men, like, bro.
All right, he's not 350 pounds. He actually looks like a solid probably 210, and he definitely goes to the gym.
See, there you go. His name is Jack fucking Buffington.
I'm going to see if it'll let me share this, because
the only way this could be better is if it's Jack McBuffington. Okay, what is this? Is
This is Jack Buffington.
This is Jack Buffington. He does not look like Jack Buffington should be, but
I mean, he does look like he takes care of himself, but he's definitely not, Jack Buffington.
like that dude should be fucking built like what's his face from fucking Kentucky Ballistics. All right.
Scott,
yes, he should be built like Scott. He should be like, I'm Jack Buffington, and this is economics with Jack Buffington. You know what I mean? Like this is
economical ballistics with Jack Buffington.
he should be like explaining economics in terms of weights, like resistance bands. Shit. Anyway, he's an assistant professor of supply chain management at the Daniels College of Business at the University of Denver.
All right, we've covered Jack. We don't give a shit. He's not buff. We don't give a shit.
Beer is a discretionary spend and a social spend, end quote. So people cut back on how much they spend on beer when they are worried about the economy. He explained, since it's much less expensive to pick up a 6-pack than to go out for draft beers, how much money people are spending on draft beer, and pricey craft beers in particular is a harbinger of a recession. Craft beer sales, by the way, are way down, potentially indicating a recession is likely, Buffington said. You see what I mean? Stripper index, hooker index, beer index. These are things, but there is yet another one. But there is another. In 2008, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan observed that declining sales of men's underwear likely meant we were headed for a recession. There's a concerning trend. Sales dropped roughly 6% over these past months, Lockenthal says. Guys only skip replacing underwear when they're worried about money, so you may be in trouble, he says. Again, a luxury good.
I mean, yeah, what self-respecting man hasn't gone, you know what? All my underwear in the laundry. I'm going commando today.
What dude hasn't been like, these underwear are still good, and they look like they've been through like that. When you
look like they were on the
CCR,
receiving end of a claymore.
When you play CCR in their presence, they have flashbacks. Okay, that we all have a pair, at least one. That like
your underwear listening to Fortunate Son, all right?
That's what I'm saying. And they're just, and they can hear thump, 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 thump. Like that image, that meme with the chihuahuas and the fucking helicopters, but like that we all have pairs of underwear that we know.
Or
right?
Since we're not Vietnam era, you could say the same thing about like let the bodies hit the floor and the sandbox, or burn.
Yeah, but like I mean, the point is that they have like they're worn.
They have PTSD.
They have seen some shit, possibly literally. Okay,
like
we all have those underwear.
We're all men. We're all men here. Likely, literally.
And when you get over 40, kids, the thing that no one tells you is when you get over, I mean, even approaching 40, there's going to come a point where you're going to try to lift something heavy, and you are in fact going to shit your pants. It's going to happen. No one wants to tell you that
40,
it happens.
I've not done that yet. So just saying.
Yet.
I did say yet. I did not say
it's coming. It is coming. There's going to be a moment.
Man, I wish I was.
It's but no, there's going to be a moment. It's where it happens, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, it was foretold." Yes.
Fucking hell! I just pulled a Biden. Damn it! Shit.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, why? Well, because you had Taco Bell yesterday and some whiskey, and now
there's a reason I don't eat Taco Bell.
It's gonna be like, I had too much salt and whiskey, and then I'm trying to lift a refrigerator today, and like that's gonna happen, and then you're going to hate your life. But the best that some of us can hope for is it doesn't happen in somebody else's presence. Let's be honest.
So instead of going through all of these indices, the next one is the lipstick index.
I have a lipstick index, but it means something entirely different.
I do, yeah.
The hemline one, though, I do want to cover. Let's cover the hemline one, because this one's actually one that
hold on.
people
Biden doesn't have ass cancer. He has aggressive prostate cancer that spread to his bones.
So what he has is splooge organ cancer.
Yes.
His splooge organ is cancer, in my opinion. But
well, I mean, the results of his splooge organ are cancer.
Yes. You see what I mean? That's what we're saying. But no, so this has gone off the rails. Hemline, the hemline index. Okay, the hemline index is something that people have been talking about actually like 35, 40 years. That economists have kind of talked about as a hemline index. If you've never heard of it, look it up. Seriously, it's a thing that people have been talking about for a very long time.
This one's actually quite interesting.
Hemlines quote, rise with optimism, fall with doubt. Although absurd, this psychological anomaly quantifies consumer confidence and social mood. Historically, shorter hemlines meant economic optimism, and longer hemlines signaled economic trouble. For example, the happy-go-lucky flappers in the Roaring 20s wore short dresses. And if you've never seen an original flapper dress, when they say short,
yeah.
My God. Okay, your
great
grandmothers, if they tried to reach a high shelf, Victoria's Secret was out.
I mean, the original flapper dresses of the 20s make a lot of the shit that you see or that you've seen in young girl or teenage girls from about 2012 to 2019 look conservative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good God. And actually, it's kind of funny that this comes up because I can remember when Emily was still in high school, her junior year and whatnot, going to her choir concerts, and you'd see the girls in her choir wearing dresses where the dress comes down to about mid-thigh, maybe a little higher. Went to Tommy's concert today, and most of the dresses were just below the knees or lower.
Yep. Yeah, and it's this weird thing that's been documented for 100 years, right? We're up to a century of this shit. Currently, the hemline index is sending mixed signals because recent designer collections are featuring both long and short hems. Thanks to fast fashion, hemlines aren't as clear an indicator as they once were. However, given the accuracy of the hemline index historically, worth keeping an eye on the runways this season. So
this one's quite funny too. The brunette index.
I love the picture that accompanies it personally.
You know, I don't disagree with you. But if you notice fewer blonde hairdos, it could be a sign a recession is looming. Stylists are often first to notice economic shifts, and lately, many have mentioned clients asking for easier and cheaper options. Clients may shift from high-maintenance hairstyles to lower-maintenance natural looks as a way to save money, Kindness explained. There are signs spending at salons is down. If you see formerly blonde recession brunettes out and about, it might be a sign a recession is coming.
Recession brunette is now a thing that I'm going to use.
Yes.
I'm going to start calling chicks recession brunettes. That is a thing that I am doing. Chicks that were blonde until very recently that are suddenly brunettes. Because what that tells me is you're broke. However, it's important to remember that may be your local stripper because you're not tipping them, you jerk. Tip your strippers.
So, speaking of how bad the economy is, U.S. debt no longer earns a top grade at any of the major credit rating agencies after Moody downgrade.
That's right. Although America still has a dramatically better credit rating than me, it is now, in fact, worse than Elon Musk.
Moody's downgraded U.S. credit rating one rung to 1AA1 or AA1 from AAA on Friday evening, meaning federal debt no longer gets a top grade at any of the major rating agencies. Moody's cited the increase over more than a decade in government debt and interest payment ratios to levels that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereigns.
The explosion of debt in recent 4 years.
10.
Well, yes, but very much the past 4 years recently finally led to Moody's downgrade of the U.S. credit on Friday evening, meaning federal debt no longer gets top grade at any of the major top rating agencies. Moody's cut the U.S. one rung to AA1 from AAA after it sounded the alarm on the deteriorating fiscal situation in March. In November 2023, Moody's lowered its outlook on U.S. debt to negative, which is often a precursor to an eventual downgrade. This one-notch downgrade on our 21-notch rating scale reflects the increase over more than a decade in government debt and interest payment ratios to levels that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereigns. Successive U.S. administrations and Congress have failed to agree on measures to reverse that trend of large annual fiscal deficits and growing interest costs. We do not believe that material multi-year reductions in mandatory spending and deficits will result from current fiscal proposals under consideration. The downgrade comes as the Republican-controlled Congress tries to extend tax cuts from President Donald Trump's first term and add new ones like ending taxes on tips, overtime, and Social Security. While lawmakers are also looking for spending cuts, the total impact of fiscal proposals overall would add trillions to the budget deficit in the coming years. That says the budget deficit has already topped $1 trillion so far this fiscal year, to hit $2 trillion in prior fiscal years. Debt interest payments alone are now one of the biggest spending items, exceeding the Pentagon's budget.
What could possibly go wrong?
So just for perspective, right? Again, let's marinate on this, right? Let's explore that for a minute. So the budget deficit exceeds American spending on the Department of Defense. America currently has the largest ship ever built.
Yep.
You know which one that is?
Gerald R. Ford.
The USS Gerald R. Ford, the single largest ship ever built. It's built as a warship, right? We have 2 more being built. We have the F-35s that we are currently building not only for ourselves, but also for foreign nations.
A number of allies.
We have F-22s that are starting to really show their age and need upgrades, maintenance, things like that. We have a lot of we have B-52s that have not been built since like 1971.
But are still constantly they're still constantly being upgraded. I think they just got J mods.
Yeah. So we have those, right? We have all these aircraft. We have
we have the B-1 and the B-2 and the incoming B-21.
The B-21 is a project.
The upcoming F-47.
Because we needed that.
Right.
That mattered. We could have just built more F-22s, let's be honest. Just build more F-22s. No. We need new. This is the American defense budget, and that is paled in comparison to just the generic budget deficit that the United States has. So when somebody tells you, well, I just, my taxes just pay for the military, you can honestly tell them, no, they don't. They don't pay anything except
They just pay for the debt, the interest on the debt.
Yep. Interest on debt. That is all your taxes, all of your taxes. That is it. That is all they pay. Everything. That is it. They pay for debt. That's it. They're paying interest. They're paying nothing else. They're just paying interest. And the United States has gotten to the point where, for the first time in its entire history, its credit has been downgraded.
So I'm looking at it right now, actually. Other countries of note that currently hold higher credit ratings than the United States: Australia, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, Sweden, and Switzerland.
Well, of course, Switzerland has a good credit.
Well, I mean, Switzerland will always be AAA. Let's be honest. Other countries where the U.S. finds itself in company with: Austria and Finland, according to Moody's.
Socialist countries.
Yep. And right below them are the AA2s, where you find South Korea and the UAE.
I can't believe the UAE is that low, to be honest with you. Well, I rescind. No, I can. It's not that they can't pay their bills. They just forget to do it.
I mean, Qatar is an AA3.
Yeah, but you got to keep in mind with these countries, like, it's not that they can't. It's that they don't want to.
Yep. Saudi Arabia is in that same boat as AA3. Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Isle of Man, Ireland, Czech Republic, Cayman Islands, Belgium, France, and the UK are all AA3s. And those are your top.
I love that the Isle of Man
has its own
separately from the rest of the UK. That makes me very happy. As a Celt, I am extremely pleased by this. Because there are three Celtic languages, right? There are three Gaelic languages. There's Irish, Scottish, and Manx. And so we're the Celts. We're the last remaining.
And let's be honest, Moody's was the first one or the last one. Fitch, the U.S. has been in AA plus on Fitch since 2023. And S&P has had the United States as an AA plus since 2013.
To quote Moody's about it, over the next decade, we expect larger deficits as entitlement spending rises, while government revenue remains broadly flat, Moody's said Friday. In turn, persistent large fiscal deficits will drive the government's debt and interest burden higher. The U.S. fiscal performance is likely to deteriorate relative to its own past and compared to other highly rated sovereigns. At the lower rating, Moody's put the U.S. outlook at stable, noting its strong economy and the role of the dollar as a reserve currency, but that, quote, exorbitant privilege, end quote, can no longer make up for the soaring pile of debt. While we recognize the U.S. significant economic and financial strengths, we believe these no longer fully counterbalance the decline in fiscal metrics. In a statement of fortune, White House spokesman Kush Desai pointed to trillions of dollars in spending, debt, and inflation fueled Fed rate hikes under the Biden administration and a democratically controlled Congress. The Trump administration and Republicans are focused on fixing Biden's mess by slashing the waste, fraud, and abusing government and passing the one big beautiful bill. Any bill that has a name is probably bad. But anyway, to get our house back in order, he added, if Moody's had any credibility, they would not have stayed silent as the fiscal disaster of the past 4 years unfolded. So it sounds like the current administration, based on that, would have preferred that they would have dropped America's credit rating earlier.
Yes.
And been like, you guys are fucking up. Because they're hoping that that would have signaled to the American people at an earlier time that, like, hey, things are really, really bad. You guys should maybe, like, be concerned about this.
Moody's was the last of the major credit rating agencies that gave the U.S. debt a top mark. Fitch cut, I already covered this. Fitch cut the U.S. in 2023, citing fiscal deterioration and repeated debt ceiling brinkmanship. That followed a similar downgrade from S&P in 2011. After an earlier debt ceiling crisis. Despite the downgrade on Friday, Moody's was also hopeful on America's institution, even as they are tested, as well as its monetary and macroeconomic policymaking. In particular, we assume that the long-standing checks and balances between the three branches of government and respect for the rule of law I can't say it face will remain broadly unchanged. It explained, in addition, we assess the U.S. has the capacity to adjust its fiscal trajectory even as policy decision-making evolves from one administration to the next.
The reality is, right.
The reality is the U.S. Is going to continue to flip-flop back and forth between stupid and stupider, dumb and dumber. Maybe that's better. And we are all going to pay the price for it.
I'm gonna sing the doom song now. Doom, 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 doom. Anyway, yes, we're all doomed.
The U.S. government is currently run by Pinky in the Brain,
and unfortunately, Pinky is actually, if you pay attention to Pinky in the Brain, the smarter one.
Yes.
Nerf. So. Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? I think so, Brian, but if he was appropriate for children, wouldn't he be Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Speaking of those three branches of government,
just blow that whole thing off. We're just gonna move on. Where are we going now?
House passes bill restricting district court judges from issuing nationwide injunctions.
Allegedly, but yes.
Allegedly.
The
House on Wednesday passed a bill restricting district court judges from issuing nationwide injunctions in a move that would vastly diminish the ability of the courts to block President Trump's policies. Dubbed the No Rogue Rulings Act, the legislation from Representative Darrell Issa from California would limit judges to providing relief only to parties directly involved in the suit. The bill passed in a 219 to 213 vote. It would bar district court judges from issuing nationwide injunctions even when the matter has an impact across the country, undercutting numerous lawsuits challenging Trump's directives. Okay.
I love that they include Trump's directives and they ignore all of the lawsuits that were challenging Biden's directives not that long ago, or
like all of the FPC stuff or the gun
Obama's
stuff. Well,
yeah, all of the stuff for the past like 40 years.
Right. I mean, now to be mildly, I'll say mildly fair, most of the cases that ended up having nationwide implications ended up being ruled on by the Supreme Court to make it a nationwide thing. But like DC versus Heller only really held sway in the DC District Court and whatever circuit court of appeals they report to until the Supreme Court took it up. There was no nationwide injunction on that.
Can I just point out, like, does that not make sense though? Like what they're arguing, does that not make sense? Because I think it does. And whether it works for my side or not, I think it makes sense, right?
To not let district courts have nationwide sway.
Right. That a
No, I agree
district
with that.
court has authority in its district.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. There's no reason why a district court in Northern California should be able to make a nationwide injunction that prohibits people in Wisconsin from doing X, Y, or Z.
Right. And I think that this is in the spirit of federalism, right? I'm an anarchist. I think all of this is bullshit. I fucking fuck these people, right? All of them.
Yes.
All of them. All of them. But it
the
makes
R's, the
sense.
D's, the L's, fuck them all.
Does it not make sense that you would say objectively, right, from the outside, as somebody who doesn't want any of them to be in charge of my life at all in any way, shape, or form, does it not make sense that you would still say, like, but you're only in charge of this little district, so that's all you get to rule on?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And what's funny about this is it's just like we talked about with the Supreme Court Code of Ethics bill that they tried to pass under Biden.
Right.
It's going to get challenged in the courts because the courts hold sway over whether or not a law fits within the framework of the Constitution, right? And the district court is going to look at that bill and go, no, throw it.
See, here's where when people say division of powers and they talk about the 3 division of powers, they miss one. Okay. There are supposed to be 4 division of powers in the United States. Not 3, 4.
You have the 3 co-equal branches of government, the judicial, right, the legislative, and the executive. And the 4th one, Andrew, is what?
Is the armed populace. Because the judicial is supposed to offset the executive.
I'm going to wear this wrong just to illustrate the patch.
So, okay. So
that's
the lawmakers,
a terrible idea. When do we start?
Right. So let's break it down simply, right? Let's break it down simply. So the lawmakers are supposed to offset the law enforcers. Mm-hmm. And vice versa.
And the judicial is supposed to keep both of them in line by making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The first line of defense, right? And this is the way it's supposed to work, is the first line of defense is the lawmakers. The second line of defense is the law enforcers. Third line of defense is the judicial branch, the punishers.
I'd say the law arbiters.
Right. When all 3 of those fail, there is but one.
Peace out, Tinker. We got you.
See you, bud. There is but one when those 3 fail. One left.
That is the armed citizen.
The Second Amendment. That is where you fall, right? The armed citizen. That is where that is supposed to be. That is how checks and balances in the United States, according to our founding fathers, according to the vision of freedom and self-governance, allegedly worked. Now that doesn't survive actual government, as we anarchists know. Government will always seek to become an all-consuming monster, an all-ruling monster, and it will happen. And then eventually people will rebel, and
regardless of the governmental system, it doesn't matter if you're talking communism, democracy, all the way down to pure democracy. Centralized authority only seeks to further empower itself. Could I put that any more succinctly?
Yeah, that's that. I think that works. At the end of the day, right? There is really but one thing that you can honestly say that the ruling class fears.
A determined and armed population.
And when the ruling class has to actively fear the population, that is when the population gets what they want, what they feel is best for them, what they know to be best for them, what they want. Right? That is when freedom reigns. When the headsman axe looms large, government will behave.
And I think that, and I shouldn't say I think, I know that is largely why we live in the country that we find ourselves in today. The people have forgotten who actually holds the power, or who actually is supposed to hold the power.
Who always holds the power, has always holded the power. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in Imperial Rome. It doesn't matter if you're in Imperial Egypt or Babylon. It doesn't matter.
The citizenry always outnumbers the ruling class.
Yes. You will always actually have the power if you are willing to take it and exercise it. Literally always, right? You will always have the power if you are willing to take it. And if you have the means, if you're willing to take the means, keep the means, retain the means. This is what it is, right? Now, what this law seeks to do is to quell a lot of fears of those of us who go, but an armed citizenry is really what we need here. And go, no. The circuit courts can't actually rule for the entire country. And I actually support this. And why do I support this? Because it leads to national divorce.
Yes. It leads to balkanization.
And this is what we need. The United States should not be one whole country. It never should have. And it certainly shouldn't be now.
And if you were to, so anybody who doesn't know, I'll come right out and say it. Yes, I'm speaking against my own better interest here. I currently work for a county, not the county I live in, the county next door. But the one thing that my boss always says is the state of Wisconsin is 72 experiments, and not a single one of them has all of the right answers for the people in that county. And he's right. He's absolutely right.
And you want to tell me that the people in Dane County know what's best for the people up north in the woods?
Or the people in Milwaukee County know what's best for people that live in Janesville, even though they're 3 counties away? Or the people in Jackson County know what's best for the people right next door in Trempealeau County? No. The people in the idea is the people in their local municipalities know what's best for themselves.
The reality is communities should govern themselves. And the smaller you can make that governance, the better. And this
was the intent.
And this is what being an anarchist is, right? At its core is going, well, the smaller the group in charge of disparate lives, the better. Because
the smallest. Right, go ahead.
Because the people who are the closest to those disparate lives are the ones who know how to rule it best. And the logical conclusion of that is that you are the best qualified to run your life.
Yes. the smallest or the smallest unit of governance is the individual.
Always.
And the individual should always have the greatest level of autonomy over their lives. And that is something that we don't have and haven't had since the founding.
And I've explained this to so many people and watched their eyes light up when they suddenly reach this conclusion, right? I go, well, should the people in Washington, D.C. be able to rule over everybody? Well, no, that hasn't worked. I mean, obviously, like there's too many different people. There's too much, right? Because what do the people in Los Angeles have to do with the people in rural Western Texas have to do with the people in northern Maine have to do with the people in rural Wisconsin and Minnesota have to do, they don't have anything to do with each other. They certainly should not collectively be making laws for each other.
Yep. And the same argument can be made for what do the people in Madison, so using Andrew and I, our state, Wisconsin, what do the people in Madison know about what it means to live in La Crosse, Juneau, Trempealeau, Wood, any of the other counties across the state of Wisconsin?
Imagine if you transplanted a person, right? You took a person who was born and raised in Milwaukee. They lived nowhere else but Milwaukee their whole lives.
And moved them Shawano.
You moved them to an hour southeast of Duluth and said, you're now in charge as of right now.
Yeah.
Do you think they'd know?
Lost.
They would have no idea, right? They would have no idea how to handle that.
They would immediately start trying to make the tiny ass town that they find themselves the mayor of, or the township that they find themselves the president of the board of, or whatever. They would immediately start to try to enact the same types of policies that they had in Milwaukee.
It's going, why don't we have better roads? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Not understanding.
To be fair, Douglas County has far better roads than Milwaukee does. But
it does. But they would start going, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Why don't we have a bigger library? Why don't we? Right. All these things. But the reality is because the needs of that community have nothing to do with the needs of the Milwaukee community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally different things. They don't understand, right? Washington, D.C. doesn't understand. L.A. doesn't understand. New York City doesn't understand. They don't understand what rural communities want, what rural communities need, right? So here's the thing, and this is what anarchism boils down to.
Neither do they care. That's the other part. They don't care.
They don't care because they're convinced that their way of life is the best way of life, right? This is how, if you are an anarchist and you want to reach somebody, or if you're somebody who is listening to our show and you're not an anarchist yourself, and maybe you stumbled on us because you've listened to weird things and now you're listening to us, right?
Or you happen to be
somehow
where we actually get pushed up the feed a little bit. And
somehow you've listened 2 hours into this show, which is probably a 3-hour show right now. If let's say that you are that person. Here's the thing. This is what anarchy boils down to. Is anarchy looks at the world and it goes, well, obviously one person or small group of people cannot effectively understand all of the diverse needs and the diverse lives of all of these disparate communities. So we need to make that smaller, right? So now let's balkanize. Let's turn things into individual countries, like across the United States, right? So you have all these little countries. But what size are those little countries? Because now you have Michigan, which is largely manufacturing, alongside Wisconsin, which is largely agrarian. And the needs of these two states is within this country of the North Woods or whatever is very, very different. And so clearly they don't have the same needs. So now we need to balkanize even further. And now you have individual states as individual countries, just like Europe, right? So now you have these little states. And then you go, but the people in Madison and Milwaukee and the major population centers, they live completely different lives than the people who live in rural areas and cannot possibly begin to understand what it is to live the lives of the people in rural areas. And therefore, how can they possibly rule over the lives of the people in rural areas? So clearly that doesn't work. And then you get down to counties and you go, okay, but even in these counties, you could have towns and then also rural people, and you could have different religious groups, different societal strata, and they have entirely different needs. And how could you possibly watch out for all of those people? Even with a fairly small group of people, it doesn't make sense. You couldn't possibly worry about it. And so now you're down to towns, and then you go, but there are different parts of town that are going to have entirely different economic needs and different religions, different raisings. They have different beliefs about how they want to live. And who are you to dictate how all of these people live? And you get down to, at the end of the day, the only person who is truly qualified to live your life and dictate it, how it should be lived, is in fact
You.
Just you. You, the individual, the single person. You are the only one who is truly qualified to live your life. This is the message of anarchism. You are the only one who can live your life. You are the only one who can make those decisions and who should be making them. No one else should be deferred to for how to live your life, because they cannot possibly understand what your life is and make those judgment calls and make that decision. You should be running your life. And if you run your life poorly, you are affecting other people, and those people should have the ability to respond.
Yes.
To you running your life poorly, to you affecting them. That's what anarchism says, is individuals. That is who runs the world anyway, and individuals should be able to run their own lives. That is what it amounts to. Imagine there is no government.
Broken down any better than that.
That is anarchy. That is the message of anarchism. That is what we preach. Just that. Run your own life. You deserve.
As long as your life, as long as the way you're living your life isn't impacting another person's life in any way, there's no reason anybody else should ever hold sway over how you choose to live your life.
Even if you're ruining someone else's life, they have a right to respond in anarchism, as far as I'm concerned, and respond as they see fit. And that is how anarchism works. It's all individuals. It removes the centralized authority that declares, I am the absolute arbiter of everyone's well-being. That's what it removes. That is what anarchy is. I didn't set out to make this episode have an anarchy evangelist message in it, but it happened. And it's there now.
What we need to do? We need to clip that so we can make it a short and try to push that out.
Dude, if John watches this, he'll probably do that.
So, John, if you're listening,
bro, do that. Clip that.
Do it.
Clip that shit. Or maybe Jason will. I mean, I don't know. He does that shit occasionally. But Jason, we miss you on the podcast, by the way.
Yes.
I know you listen to it after we record it.
It becomes very difficult to get Andrew to land the plane. He's too busy jumping out of it.
I'm very used to jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. But let's talk about a couple other things. Do we want to do another fun one? I want to do another fun one. I think this is fun. This one's absolutely wonderful because it is one of my favorite subjects in the world. It is about Florida man.
Oh God. Don't get me wrong. I love a good Florida man story. This one is like, I don't know that you could get more Florida than this story.
$167.3 million Powerball winner charged with kicking Florida cop in the face at resort days later with girlfriend aptly named
Jacqueline
Fightmaster.
This Powerball winner went from striking gold to striking out. A Kentucky son who won an eye-popping $167.3 million jackpot prize with his elderly mother was in handcuffs just days later for allegedly kicking a Florida deputy in the face as the cop attempted to break up a bar fight at an oceanfront resort Tuesday. Now, this article is from May 1st, so take that for what it's worth.
Ago.
James Farthing and his girlfriend, Jacqueline Fightmaster, yes, really, were both arrested. I love that they added that, the yes, really, were both arrested following the fracas at the Trade Winds Resort at St. Pete Beach on the heels of his lucky draw at Clark's Pumpkin Shop in the Bluegrass State Saturday.
Again, this is from the New York Post. And they have the yes, really. Her name is Fightmaster.
Farthing, a former convict, even posed with an oversized check with his gal pal and mother Monday before his fortunes drastically changed the following night. The Georgetown, Kentucky resident punched another hotel guest in the face during an argument and then kicked a Pinellas County Sheriff's deputy in the face.
It's actually Pinellas, but
yeah. Pinellas County deputy in the face during the scuffle around 11:10 p.m. An arrest affidavit obtained by the Post alleges.
He's from Kentucky and he won a bunch of money and went to Florida. What a shock that he got into a bar fight.
Law enforcement officer had a swelling and redness on the right side of his face under his eye, according to the affidavit first reported on by the Smoking Gun. Following the alleged kick to the face, Farthing then tried to flee the scene unsuccessfully, the affidavit claims. Meanwhile, Fightmaster, 42, allegedly lived up to her name when she drunkenly wanted to brawl with other patrons at the bar, according to police documents. Oh, and she looks absolutely like the type of person who, that's my man. Don't you fucking touch my man.
She absolutely looks like the kind of chick who would, one, be the girlfriend of the dude, and when you look at his mugshot, but two, yes. I just want to point out, yeah, she looks like the kind of chick that is just down to brawl. Like the moment, like she has a single shot of tequila, and that chick is looking to fight.
She's looking to either fight or fuck, whichever comes up first.
Yeah, she's that. Yeah, like the two of them together are either the type of couple that buys you that drink in the bar and gives you that look, or is going to actively attempt to like hit you with a 2x4 in the parking lot.
Yep. Fightmaster appeared very intoxicated and was yelling, screaming, and making incoherent statements, the documents allege. Farthing was charged with battery on a law enforcement officer, a felony, and a pair of misdemeanors, while Fightmaster was slapped with public intoxication. Both were booked early Wednesday, with Farthing also facing a parole violation stemming from Kentucky legal trouble, records show. He remained... God damn it.
Of course he is. What else would he be doing?
I mean, it's Kentucky. What do you expect? Everybody's got a criminal record.
You can't. Yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia are all in the same boat. You come on vacation, you leave on probation, right? Like, there is no way to not get in trouble in those fucking states because the cops are giant pieces of power tripping shit. If you are a cop in one of those states, understand that if you commit suicide, I will in fact have a celebratory drink in the honor of you doing the right thing.
I will have a solemn drink in remembrance of the bullet that you used to smear your brains against the wall.
I hate them so much. It defies explanation.
So he remains behind bars while Fight Master was released. Farthing was previously convicted on a slew of charges, including theft, receiving stolen property, and drug offenses, according to records. He was on the top of the world when he purchased the $2 Powerball ticket and later learned from his mother, Linda Grizzle. That's his mom's name.
Grizzle Fight Master.
Grizzle, Fight Master, and Farthing. This sounds
Farthing
like the
who won
worst.
The money.
This sounds like the worst budget law firm ever.
Grizzle Fight Master and Farthing. I just show up to court and like, we can settle this in a parking lot like that. Dude, and if you look at that picture, is there any doubt in your mind that this man is absolutely guilty of any charges levied against him? Because I think not.
No, there's no doubt. There's not a doubt in his. Jesus Christ.
There's a 0% chance, a 0% chance that this man does not own, now that he's won the lottery, an F-150 Raptor with a Salt Life sticker on the back. Okay, this.
Oh.
This guy was like, I'm going to Panama and I'm going to start some shit. That the moment he won, that is the look on his face.
While the son paid for the ticket, he said earlier this week he would split the winnings with his mother. The pair plans on paying off some bills. Oh, I'm sure you have a credit rating.
50,
Dude's probably got a credit rating that would rival most of the south side of Chicago.
There are 3 credit unions that are considering a warrant for your arrest if you don't, motherfucker. Like,
the jackpot is the largest prize awarded in Kentucky. The duo can either gobble up 30 graduated annual payments or a lump sum of 77.3 mil. It's going to be a good Mother's Day, Grizzle said in Kentucky Lottery press release. This is going to pay off my debt. A lawyer listed for Farthing did not immediately return a request for comment.
It's going to pay off your fucking... Are you kidding? Yeah, your debts are all like between $1,000 and $3,000, but you have like 70 of them out there, most of which you've forgotten about because they gave up on calling you.
Well, I mean, if they're more than
short-term loan write-offs are finally going to be taken care of.
Jesus Christ!
I won't owe check and go another dime. This is the greatest day of my life.
Grizzle, Farthing, and Grizzle, Fight Master, and Farthing.
I'm going to create an AI sign for that, and it's going to be glorious. It's going to go on our fucking Facebook. I'm telling you, that's happening. Grizzle, was it? Hey, I'm doing it right now, man. I'm right now. It's
Grizzle, Fight Master, and Farthing.
Grizzle, Fight Master, and Farthing. This is a thing that needs to happen, but I
Well, from a cop getting kicked in the face to a community being pissed off while Andrew's doing his AI art thing.
Oh, I sent a message to Lindsay. She's gonna do it.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully, depending on how high she is right now, which is actually probably very.
If she's orbiting Saturn, don't worry about it. We can do it another day.
she's I got her some of those. By the way, they're fantastic. They're these THC. So, well, you're allergic, so you can't have them, but anyone else, they're THC sodas, so like seltzers, and they're like
Are
the
those
sour
like the
grape
tree
is what I
hugger ones?
got. Well, they're better than that. Because they're 25 milligram and they're live resin, and apparently the advantage of live resin is it's full spectrum.
Wow.
And they're 25 milligram, and they're solid, man. Like 2 gulps, and I'm doing okay after 2 gulps. And it's an entire slim can. So, like, if I drank that whole thing, whoo, well, I'm on a vacation.
So, I guess I'm gonna sidestep what I said before. Do we want to go to Idaho? We have 2 more Wisconsin stories. We have a Michigan story, which is still fairly local, and we have a Californistan story.
We need to do one more because I am out of booze and I'm gonna have to run to the store to get some here, and it's already 11, so I have very limited time. So, where do we want to go here? Do we want to go to?
Well, I think Bo is the only one still here, and he's a Wisconsinite. So let's do this one. I think this one's fairly short. Wisconsin DOJ reverses decision to release cop names after pushback from police groups.
Because of course they did. They don't want you to know who the bad cops are.
When a journalism nonprofit asked the Wisconsin Department of Justice in 2020 for the names and work histories of all law enforcement officers in the state, the agency initially appeared ready to grant the request. But the department received pushback from law enforcement groups and the records were not released. This new information came to light in documents recently obtained by the Badger Project in its lawsuit against the State Department of Justice, which is seeking the names and work histories of most law enforcement officers in Wisconsin. The Badger Project's co-plaintiff in this suit is the Invisible Institute, the journalism nonprofit that made the 2020 request. Other news organizations, including the Washington Post, had seen similar requests rejected by the Wisconsin DOJ in preceding years. In 2024, State DOJ denied another request for police names and work histories, this time from both the Invisible Institute and the Badger Project, the organization sued for access. In March, as part of regular evidence exchange in the case, called Discovery, the State Department of Justice released hundreds of documents to the 2 journalism nonprofits. Among the documents was a letter sent by Assistant Attorney General Paul Ferguson, who heads the state DOJ's Office of Open Government, to every police chief in the state. The letter indicated that the state DOJ intended to fulfill the request and release the list of all law enforcement officers in the state, but asked the individual agencies to identify any undercover officers who should not be included on that list. The Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Association responded with a letter to the Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul the next day and urged the department to reverse itself, according to the documents obtained by the Badger Project. Kenneth Pillig, P-I-L-E-G, Pillig? I don't know. The association's vice president wrote that he had significant concerns in the letter. We've had contacts with members within our membership that have very serious concerns with this release and adamantly oppose the release without court review, he continued.
Of fucking course they do, because the members within your organization are all fucking cops, and a bunch of them are bad cops who have been disciplined for their bullshit, and you don't want people to know that they've been disciplined for bullshit.
Cops across the state, across every state, across the country, are no different than Catholic priests that touch little boys. They just keep moving around it. Here's the priest, find the pedophile, find the priest, find the pedophile, find the priest,
Look
find the
at
pedophile.
look
They're
at
moving around.
do you remember the anti-gypsy cop federal legislation that we
Yeah.
covered, that we talked about, where like the police department association opposed the anti-gypsy cop legislation?
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with the term gypsy cop, by the way, gypsy cop means that it's a cop who keeps committing violations of department policy everywhere they go, and then they get fired and they just move on, or they're allowed to resign, and then they just move
they
on
don't
to another
they never get
department, one
fired,
after
because
another.
if they actually get fired, then no other department, generally speaking, no other department will touch them.
Yep. But
they're given the opportunity to resign their position, and then the chief of police or the sheriff of the agency from which they resigned calls another agency close by and is like, hey, hire this guy, he needs a job.
And gypsy cops just move from one place to another, abusing person after person after person. And the thing is what these organizations are trying to do is to figure out who the gypsy fucking cops in Wisconsin are. After that national law was shot down, they are, by the police unions, they're now looking to try and figure out who the gypsy cops are in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, the state, is arguing because of the police union that they shouldn't have to release who the gypsy cops are.
Yep. Now, this isn't to take into account the fact that these records that they're requesting are actually a matter of public domain, because they are considered public employees, and therefore any records related to their time in service are also considered
be public.
Yep, they're considered a matter of public domain. So refusal to release these records is actually a violation of FOIA.
And it's pretty simple, right? Like, if you're a cop and you are protecting and serving, then therefore the people you're protecting and serving have a right to know who they're employing, because they're your employers. If your argument is that they shouldn't know, then you are not, in fact, arguing that you serve the people. You are not protecting and serving, and therefore we even want to know more who the fuck you are.
Well, I always find it funny, because whenever the government says, well, we need to do this and give police and the FBI or whomever these expanded powers, and if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. Well, then what the fuck are you hiding by not releasing these records? Because if you have nothing to hide, why are you fighting the release?
Especially because specifically this was going to get released without any undercovers listed.
Yes.
Any UCs were not going to get listed, right? We're still going to protect them. We're going to protect their families. We're still going to protect them. And there are plenty of UCs in the world who are trying to do good, like legitimately trying to help and do good. There are very few police that I have much respect for, but an awful lot of UCs I have respect for, because they're risking their lives. They're risking their families, everything, their sanity, to try and bring down drug cartels and human trafficking organizations and all of this really, really horrible shit.
So when asked for comment, neither the state DOJ nor the Wisconsin Police Chiefs Association gave a comment for this story when offered the opportunity to do so. Call assumed the position of Attorney General, the head of the Wisconsin Department of Justice, in 2019. The department previously rejected the request for a full list of law enforcement officers' names and work histories several times before he became AG, according to the released documents. Dozens of states, including Minnesota, Illinois, and Iowa, have released
all of the surrounding states.
Yep, have released a full list of their law enforcement officers to a nationwide reporting project, which includes the Invisible Institute and the Badger Project.
The Invisible Institute is dedicated to exposing gypsy cops. That is their goal.
I just dropped my pyramid of cans. The Wisconsin DOJ has, in response to repeated requests, released a list of flagged officers those who lost their jobs due to termination, resignation in lieu of termination, or resignation prior to completion of an internal investigation. This list, however, does not include officers who were fired or forced out of law enforcement jobs in a different state before taking a position in Wisconsin.
Yeah. In previous denials, Ferguson has cited concerns that a complete list could endanger UCs and pose a general risk to officers and their families in a volatile environment. Well, again, it was supposed to exclude UCs, so that's a load of horseshit. The only officers who are at risk are the ones who are pissing people off because of their behavior. The state DOJ says it isn't able to identify undercover officers and redact their names, which is horseshit. Yes, you are. Wandering officers. In Wisconsin, police and jailers who were fired or forced out of a previous job in law enforcement only to get hired at another one, called wandering officers or gypsy cops, increased by 50% from 2021 to 2024. The total number of law enforcement officers in Wisconsin is sitting near record lows. Thank God. So the pressure to hire previously fired or forced out officers can be high, experts say. Chiefs and sheriffs need to fill positions, and officers fired or forced out from previous jobs already have their certification, which costs law enforcement agencies new recruits time and money to obtain. Gypsy cops are more likely to again commit misconduct on the job, studies have suggested repeatedly. A full list of names of law enforcement officers, which would include those separated from jobs outside of Wisconsin who now hold positions in the state, would alleviate a considerable information gap. In the Invisible Institute and the Badger Project argue in their lawsuit, the records requested would not include home addresses or family information. I think that's about all we really need to cover on there.
I mean, yeah. This is all common sense information that, in theory, and according to federal law, is well within a reasonable request for a FOIA request. There's nothing here that they, like you said, they already are excluding UCs. So, and they're excluding home addresses and family information. So all they want is the names and employment records for these potential gypsy cops.
They just want to be able to quantify how many gypsy cops are there, where are they, and what are they doing.
Yeah. That seems perfectly reasonable, especially when you're talking about people who essentially have a license to kill.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things where if you are, if you're protecting and serving the public, you have an obligation to have your records and your background and what you do visible to the public that you're allegedly protecting and serving. You are under them. The public is your employer, allegedly, and therefore you have an obligation to your employer for your employer to know certain things about you, and especially when you're in a position of public trust. But once again, the police union argues they should be free from accountability, as happens over and over and over and over again from the police unions.
Well, not just the police unions, but the courts, because they give cops qualified immunity when they shouldn't get it. And all because the courts are completely chicken shit on actually being the first court to rule that a cop doesn't get qualified immunity for a situation.
Yeah,
that's what protects them all. That's how you get gypsy cops. Is you get misconduct, qualified immunity for the misconduct. They're offered the opportunity to resign in lieu of being fired.
Yep.
And then they go work somewhere else because they left and they were given a glowing review from their previous.
Yep. And they get to go and they get to abuse other citizens in other places. And then they do that until they wear out their welcome. And then they just move on again and they move on again. Yep. This is what this project is about, is finding these people and exposing them.
Yep. And where you
And
find a ton of these gypsy cops, if you are like me, so Andrew lives in a small city. If you're like me and you live in a rural town, there's a reason my rural town that used to have a 4-officer police department of their own doesn't have a police department anymore, because they were all corrupt as shit.
because they're all gypsy cops. That's where they all wind up. They all wind up in rural America. They wind up abusing people in small towns. And at the end of the day, and then the small towns finally have enough and get rid of them. And
They
then once
completely
they go,
disbanded. Yeah, they completely disbanded the local police department because of it.
yeah, because that's what happens is you fill up with gypsy cops. And this is what keeps fucking happening. But anyway, so that's what it is. And if you are somebody who is involved in some way in law enforcement and you actually care about protecting, serving, where you should support the idea that the gypsy cops' names should be released, because
Yes.
you know what, in my job, in any job, in your job, I'm sure, Chris, like if there was somebody who went from employer to employer to employer who was constantly fucking up their networks, screwing things up, destroying things, causing nothing but problems, you would want to know who that person was.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want them working for me.
Right. And if I could know who these people are who are like going from management to management to management in companies, right, in retail companies, who are toxic, who are causing problems, everything, I want to know who those people are so I don't accidentally hire them. I want to know if police departments actually wanted to hire actual quality candidates instead of just quantity candidates, they would care and want to know who these gypsy cops are. But they don't, because they don't care, because they don't have accountability.
Right. Well, and that's been our, whether you're talking about gypsy cops or just cops in general, there is a distinct lack of true accountability across the board. I mean, they're protected constantly by their district attorneys when they screw up.
Yep.
Then on the civil side, they get protected by the courts when they make when they screw up.
Yeah.
Then they're protected by their leadership when they screw up, because they're allowed to resign instead of being fired.
Yeah. They don't have accountability. And look at what happens when you don't give a kid accountability. What does that kid turn into? A fucking horrible brat who misbehaves constantly and does anything they want to anyone they want.
Yep.
Because they think nothing bad will happen to them. And this is what you've created with these fucking cops. An environment where people who are allowed ostensibly to kill someone don't have accountability. That's not the way that the things are supposed to be. That is not the way a free society operates. That's the way a police state operates.
Yeah. And the U.S. has been largely a police state since what? Wilson?
I mean, we've just
I mean, you could even say Lincoln.
State, but yeah, I mean, since Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, which, by the way,
Chairman Cheetah was talking about doing that.
Yeah, suspending habeas corpus, the thing that was already ruled unconstitutional in 1870, retroactively.
It was ruled. That's the thing.
Lincoln.
It was ruled unconstitutional because Lincoln did it from the executive. Congress has the authority to suspend habeas corpus.
Congress does not have the authority to suspend habeas corpus except in times of declared war.
Yes.
Which means they would need to declare war, which means they would need a state to declare war on.
Mm-hmm. Which is why Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus, it was ruled unconstitutional because it was done by the executive But
Well,
Congress,
even if it had been done by Congress, it wouldn't have mattered because you would have needed to say you were in a state of war. But if you say you're in a state of war, that's acknowledging that the southern states are in fact a separate country, which acknowledges their
but
right to secede, which means that you lose your control over that area, which means that you can't.
they were that's the thing, is they were in a state of, because active rebellion can be construed as a state of war.
It can and can't within in the United States Constitution. There are specific safeguards about a state of rebellion, but that's a topic for another time because we need to get going here. Because I need to get going here and
You need to do a beer run.
I need to make a beer run. So, because I have tomorrow off because I'm off Sundays and Mondays, and
must be nice. I got to be up at 8. I got to be up at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
I have to be at work at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, and I work every single Saturday. So no, it's not nice. But anyway,
then we go to the range on Sundays. Fuck it, let's go.
That's when my car shows are. But yeah, so I think we've educated people. I like to think. If you guys want to read the rest of the articles that we had potentially slated for this evening, they are in the description. As always, you are welcome to read all of those. We like to keep you guys informed as much as we can. And so check those out. Check out all those other articles that we also have, including You're Guilty in Wisconsin, even if you're not. Which is a real fun one, which means that Wisconsin has ruled that you can be charged with resisting arrest even if there was no reason for your arrest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fun one. But yeah, so that is where we're at. Real quick promos. Check out Poppins Patches. You've seen the thing over my shoulder here. Super awesome patches, super amazing. Chris has been wearing the tactical tricorn from them as well as a number of their patches. Absolutely awesome.
They do custom work.
Yes, they do custom. One time.
You know,
custom work.
That was supposed to be on that patch. It was
one
fucking time.
I've seen it. My mom almost hit a bald eagle the other day, so it runs in the family apparently. But yes, he does custom work for you. If you want a custom PVC patch, absolutely the guy to reach out to. Super awesome. Amazing dude, really good friend of the channel. We love him and we love his work. It's always super, super awesome. Also check out Lions Not Sheep. Again, they have the Freeman t-shirt, super, super awesome. I have one myself. I wear it pretty frequently, which is why I'm not wearing it because it's in the laundry. But check him out. Check out beardstruggle.com. Use code InkedAnarchist15 at checkout. You get 15% off. Care for your beard like a fucking Viking. I obviously am a fucking Viking. All right. I got an axe. I got long curly hair. I got the big red beard. I'm a fucking Viking. And you know what? I'm telling you, care for your beard the right way. Don't use regular shampoos. Don't use regular conditioners. You want to use stuff that is formulated for the beard hair, not the hair on the top of your head. That is important. Also, be sure to check out Reaper Brand Apparel. Reaper Brand Apparel is awesome. Awesome brand. Awesome message. They're great. Check them out. They have some cool stuff. And if you use the link in our description, which isn't quite in our description yet, but will be shortly, you will get more percentage off, or you can use the code InkedAnarchist to get 10% off of your order from them. But yeah, so check out the people who make this show possible, if you would please. We really appreciate them.
If you're a caffeine addict, get yourself some coffee brand coffee. Last time I checked, there was an active discount code, Valhallarchist. Get you 10% off your order. And did you mention Dubby?
Yes. Also, last but not least, Dubby. Check out Dubby. Use their stuff. They're awesome. You mix them into water, you get an energy drink. You don't get a crash. They're super great. I use Dubby constantly. I know, Chris, you just got some Dubby.
I love it. It's fantastic.
It tastes delicious. It works really, really, really well. It's super great. It's way cheaper than
way
going
cheaper,
and getting
but be
Monster.
careful with it.
They are way cheaper than going and getting cans of Monster every day for the amount of caffeine that you get.
What I'm saying is be
way
careful
cheaper.
with it, because if you say perhaps you put an extra scoop in your drink in the morning, don't be surprised if you end up with random nerve endings that tingle throughout the day. So I'm going to say, use it responsibly, but it's a fantastic product. You're muted, Andrew.
Yes, please use it responsibly. If you overdose on B vitamins, it can cause permanent nerve damage, permanent twitches, all sorts of things. Don't do that. But Dubby's awesome. If you were just looking for that pick me up in the morning and whatever, like, they are so great. I cannot say enough good things about Dubby. Definitely check them out. Use our discount code. Use our link in the description if you want it. Otherwise, it's just Inked Anarchist, and you get yourself a great big old discount off his stuff there. And they're super cool. If you're into anime, they're the official energy drink of an anime called Solo Leveling. I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably never going to watch it because I'm not a weeb. But if you are, man, there you go. But yeah, that's all we got for the evening. I'm going to get going. I need to run to Quick Trip. I need to go get beer. And Chris, you got any final words of wisdom for the evening?
If you can avoid it, don't take out a loan on your vehicle. Pay cash, even if it means you buy a cheaper car.
There you go. Words of wisdom. That's dad life advice right there. This is the compelling content that you don't pay us for.
And whatever you do, don't go to that law firm.
Oh, we're posting that on the Facebook. Trust me, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But yeah, watch for that. Watch for the cool law firm shit on Facebook. But
if you're on the Telegram chat, we'll make sure it gets there too.
We love you guys. Thank you so much for listening, watching, being part of this insane thing that we just keep doing for whatever reason.
For no apparent reason. We get no monetary benefit from this unless you support those who support us.
And even then, I get shit, man.
Yeah, it's minimal. It's really minimal.
I don't get shit.
We do this because we enjoy it. We enjoy talking to each other. We enjoy shooting the shit. And if you join us for a live episode, we enjoy interacting with you too.
If somehow you are still listening, please join us for a live episode on YouTube. It is a hell of a time, and we love interacting. But this time around, because it's been so long, we didn't get a lot of interact. It's not important. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. However you're enjoying this on whatever platform you're enjoying us on. We love you guys. We hope to see you again. We will see you on the next one. You guys have a good night.
Peace.